A little over a year ago, we were tasked with building a backpack PC, a system that fit comfortably inside an average-sized backpack, and considering its size, it still packed one heck of a punch. And in this video, we'll be building version 2, courtesy of the Cooler Master Master Box in our 200. Now, to be clear, Cooler Master is not the sponsor of this video. I elected to purchase this myself because of its size and the hardware that it apparently supports. This is one of the few compact ITX cases that still supports full-length graphics cards and beefy cooling solutions. And if my rough math is correct, this should fit into a larger size backpack. Keyword there, larger. If you have a skinny pack that only accommodates like 2 or 3 sheets of paper, this clearly will not work. The intent here is to build a powerful ITX gaming PC that you can fit into a larger pack and lug with you to a friend's house or even take on a plane without having to check it in. I'm certain my CPU choice will be a bit controversial. This is the Core i5-11600K, that's right, 11th gen Intel, and this is actually the last generation to not feature performance and efficiency cores. Some might appreciate that. This also includes 6 physical cores and hyper-threading for a total of 12 threads, which is going to be great for modern games, and it only costs around $100 used on sites like eBay. But as usual with these builds, if you aren't a fan of my CPU choice, I will have an opposing team option. So I'll have an AMD build that's going to feature the same graphics card, the same power supply more or less, of course the same case, but obviously a different platform. In the description, I'll also have a 12th gen Intel option in the 12600KF, which I think is also a really great deal. It's going to be a bit more modern, going to have those P and E cores, and you'll probably have better luck finding an affordable ITX motherboard in that case as well. This one's cool. So this is an iGame GeForce RTX 3070. Yes, one generation old from NVIDIA, but the reason that I'm choosing this and not a 4070, let's say, apart from maybe the price argument, is the fact that firstly, you can find these dirt cheap already on sites like eBay. If you want to spend around $200 to $300, a 3070 like this is right up your alley. It's going to give you great performance for the money spent. The other reason being, NVIDIA is expected to announce 50 series stuff over the next month or two. I imagine the rumors are probably true. Sometime around CES, NVIDIA will make pretty big claims regarding its next gen hardware, and I don't really want to make you invest like an MSRP into 40 series when 50 series is right around the corner. That would probably give you a bit of buyer's remorse, especially given 40 series pricing. So just buy used. If you want to build today, I recommend the used market. It is very, very hot right now. Again, you can find these 3070s, even 3080s for around the $200 to $300 price range. There are several caveats to this build, sure, but I want to give you many different options. I want to give you my rationale, of course, into why I'm choosing what I'm choosing, but I don't want you to feel like there's only one way to approach a system like this. You could build a more modern 12th gen Core i5 system. You could build an AM4 or an AM5 AMD system instead of an Intel one altogether. And so this is my way of sort of appeasing everyone more or less in the description with those different options. Enough of me rambling then. It is time to finally build in this system, and I hope you will stay with me. Retail Windows keys are expensive, so if you're planning your next PC build, consider checking out our sponsor, VIP SCD Key. Their Windows 10 and 11 OEM keys sell for a fraction of retail and will unlock the full potential of the OS. They'll also remove those pesky activation watermarks without relying on sketchy third-party software. This month only, you can snag Windows 10 and 11 Home and Pro OEM keys for 30% off using our promo code GSVIP. Simply click the link below corresponding to your version of Windows, click Buy Now, and pay with a secure payment method like PayPal. At checkout, don't forget our code again, GSVIP, and watch as 30% ripped right off the top, bringing Windows 10 down to $15 and Windows 11 to $21. After your order's been placed, hop on over to the user center and click View Keys/Codes, and there you go, a genuine OEM Windows key that'll lock to your combination of hardware. Note that you may need to reactivate when swapping things like motherboards by nature of how OEM keys work, but it sure beats the heck out of retail pricing, and most folks aren't swapping motherboards every day. And be sure to stick around till later in the video, where we'll show you how to activate Windows with said key. In the meantime, check out those links below, and don't forget our special offer code GSVIP to save 30%. Let's jump straight into platform assembly, shall we? Starting first with our CPU, of course, our trusty Core i5-11600K. We're gonna pull back on this lever. There we go, that's better. We'll lower the arm, tighten everything back down, and then we'll move straight over to DDR4 again. 2 DIMMs for 2 slots. Our stickers are gonna face inside here. So we'll do the innermost first. I think we're gonna be okay with clearance for our CPU cooler, but I have a backup plan just in case. Now let's take care of our M.2. Just gotta pop the seal, which I'm doing with a screwdriver, LTT screwdriver. Check it out, it's got my name on it. That's pretty dope. 2 Phillips screws later, and with the cover removed, we can see our M.2 slot. We're going to carefully situate the drive like so. Then we simply tighten everything back down. Now we move to our cooler install, and we're gonna start first with the back plate. Then we place and tighten down these brackets in this arrangement here, spreading some Thermal Grizzly Cryonaut Extreme, and down goes the cooler. Wow, my, this is such a tight fit, but that's what makes it look super cool. Look at that there, almost a perfect fit. And I think we're gonna situate a white fan atop this heatsink rather than Noctua's base brown. This will just look so much better in our white case. Check that out. All this power packed into such a small footprint, minus the bulky cooler up top here. I think it's gonna keep our CPU nice and chill, but I just love this form factor so much. Also, yes, I noticed these fingerprints same time you did. They're also driving me insane. I'm gonna go ahead and try to drop her in. Let's see. Oh boy. All right. Oh god, that's like super close. Let's see if I can bend this hard drive cage out of the way. Yep, kind of cringy. Alrighty, that'll work. I could have also removed the exhaust fan. I think I'm gonna do that anyway because it's hitting the heatsink of our CPU cooler. Not the end of the world, but yeah. I'm gonna need to fix that. Just a few screws, no big deal. It is nice that Cooler Master includes at least one fan with their NR200, although this is definitely smaller than 120. What is this, like 90? Oh, 92, okay. So it's probably 92 millimeter, sickle flow. It is PWM, but removing this means we're not gonna have a single case fan in the build. Next, we'll tighten this down. Things are coming along nicely, and I've gotta say, I'm relieved that the CPU cooler fits as is. I was a bit worried about that. We do have the Thought I broke something, it was just the side panel. We do have the option with this cooler of swapping the fan to the position underneath the heatsink. So if we wanted to move this underneath, we could. We would just see the heatsink from this left side instead of the fan, but I wanted to keep this exposed because it's white, it matches the chassis, and it's still gonna get plenty of ventilation because the entire left side panel is also perforated. And it's a bit hard to believe, but we actually only have two components to go, the graphics card and the power supply. Compact builds like these, as long as you're not overcomplicating them with like AIOs or especially custom loops, they tend to go by very quickly. And there's enough cable management headroom, I think, in this chassis that wiring and stuff shouldn't be a huge deal. Though I might have spoken too soon. I actually have no idea what's behind this panel. I've never checked before. Okay, this is actually pretty impressive. So we get a very large cutout behind our motherboard for access to things like the M.2 slot for this specific board and our cooler mounting options, including the threading for Intel. That's very nice. This is all just basically unobstructed. You probably thought this cage was for hard drives. It's actually for the SFX power supply, so we'll find out how to install that here in a second. And then we have a very large cutout down below for just extra cable management headroom if we want. We can access the back of our graphics card here as well. And I should clarify, this case actually supports up to SFX-L power supplies, but in our case, we're gonna be sticking with SFX. So we can keep the cage here, but if we were using a larger one, we could slide this entire cage up just a bit. Just doing a bit of cable management before we get that unit in here. So this is USB 3, front panel, etc. And you can see it's gonna be a very tight fit once we get this graphics card in here because the PCIe slot is at the very bottom of the board, which is typical with ITX. So I wanna make sure that all of these cables are out of the way beforehand. For this build, we'll just need a 24 pin, a supplemental PCIe 8 pin, another supplemental PCIe 8 pin, and an 8 pin EPS. You know, it is just incredible that Cooler Master was able to squeak out 1100 watts from an SFX unit this small. Like, it fits in the palm of my hand. It's fully modular and it's 80+ platinum rated. After a couple of Phillips screws, I think, yep, we can pull the cage out fairly easily. This is a tight fit with this large CPU cooler next to it. And well, I've actually decided to have the power supply pull in air through the left side panel. My thinking is we're already gonna have air pulled in this direction by the CPU cooler, so we might as well have something else also working air in that direction. And then the way that this power supply is oriented, all of that hot air from the unit will then get exhausted out the top, which is the natural flow of hot air. Now you would think from the positioning of this power supply that we'd have a difficult time accessing the 24 pin and even the 8 pin EPS up top, but Cooler Master has thought that through, thankfully, because if they hadn't, this would have been a disaster. So we've toolless top panel removal, thought it was there we go. Thought it was toolless. And you can see that we have very, very open, easy access to pretty much the entire motherboard below this cooler. Obviously, we wouldn't have such restraints if we used a more low-profile CPU cooler or even an AIO and we didn't have the radiator installed up front, which this case also supports, I think up to a 240. But we have pretty easy access to the 8 pin EPS there and even the 24 pin sandwiched between our DDR4 and the power supply. So from this side, yeah, there's no way that would have worked. The clearance is super tight, But up top here, it was actually very easy to install. I've done my best to get these cables out of the way. We just have our two 8-pin PCIe cables dangling here. That means it's time for our graphics card. This is the most exciting part in my opinion. And would you look at there, that is a gorgeous looking card. We have used this a few times in the distant past, but not recently. I'm finally able to find a good use for this card again. It's a 3070, like I said, it's a great card, especially if you can find it for around $200 to $300 used. And this one in particular is probably one of the best looking they've ever made. I also love that this NVIDIA generation didn't rely on the 12-volt high power cable. This is just two standard 8 pins, much easier to deal with in my opinion. Nice and easy then. You can see the length is just perfect, which I'm very happy about. And okay, now we just have to get it into the slot, which it's not easy with how limited our spacing is. Oh, come on.
A few moments later.
It's all the way in now, that's what she said, but the sag is pretty rough. You can see the side here is, it's sloped downward a fair bit, but I think I have a solution. For starters, just know that most of the GPU support posts and brackets you find on sites like Amazon are not gonna work here because they are too large for a case this small. You can see that the distance between the bottom of the case and the underside of this graphics card shroud is just, yeah, it's very minimal, and most posts are gonna reach up, at their shortest setting much higher than this. Now this is gonna seem pretty jank, but I've got a piece of pretty dense styrofoam here that I've cut down to, I think, the perfect height to get this card level. And no, it's not near anything that's gonna catch on fire. It's not a fire risk as long as you know what you're doing. Don't just shove random plastic and styrofoam stuff into a build unless you're cautious and you mount it correctly. And you can see with it in place now, it is very minimalistic. I know it's very low effort, but it gets the job done, and you're not likely to even notice that it's there, which was the goal in the first place. And you can better see from this angle with it all hooked up, the graphics card is much more level now. It's not perfect, but it's much better than where we started. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the grand reveal. Here is a shot from the right side looking incredibly clean, very little cable exposure. And here is a shot from the left side looking extremely clean, if I do say so myself. Again, very little in the way of cable exposure, and I'm just loving the white aesthetic. I'm not kidding when I say I think this is one of my best looking ITX builds to date. And that's saying something because I didn't spend a ton of time coordinating the looks of this rig outside of maybe just some white components. Again, obviously the white fan in the top flow cooler, the white graphics card, the white motherboard to complement the white chassis. That all was pretty straightforward, but I didn't use custom sleeve cable extensions or anything like that here. I didn't use RGB fans or anything to really set this build off because we don't have a tempered glass left side panel with the NR200. We only get a perforated panel, which is great for airflow, not necessarily great for aesthetics. Some prefer this and some don't, I understand, but you can see a little bit of the components through these larger holes, and that's why I wanted at least white components. But considering, again, I didn't go out of my way to really beautify this rig beyond that, I'd say it still looks pretty darn good. The next logical step then is to power on, or at least attempt to. I think this will work. I hope it will. And then we'll get Windows installed. Here we go. All right, that's always a relief when your fans spin at the very least. Even if it doesn't post, as long as you get power and some reaction from your components, that's a great sign. I also absolutely adore top flow coolers. Being able to see your fan spin through your left side panel is always a treat. Installing Windows is very straightforward. We have a video detailing exactly how to do this step by step, linked in the description for you to follow. But let's say you've gotten that far. Let's say you've installed Windows and you're wondering what comes next. Well, before long, you'll notice a pesky activation watermark pop up. So you can use this operating system for free with limitations. And if you'd like those removed, you can snag a key from our sponsor, VIP SCD key. Once obtained, navigate to the activation tab within Windows settings. You can get there quickly by typing activate in your search tab and clicking enter. From here, click change or add product key, paste your code, allow Windows to run its checks, and then click activate. Give it a minute, you should notice that watermark disappear along with a message that Windows has been successfully activated if everything goes as planned. VIP SCD key special sale is happening now and for a limited time, so be sure to snag a key or two before it's too late. And be sure to use my special offer code again, GSVIP, for a sweet discount on a variety of options, including Windows 10, Windows 11, and more. So there you have it, a very capable ITX system sporting Windows and now ready for your favorite games. And to give you a small taste of what this is actually capable, I've pulled up some 3D Mark Time Spy average scores for the 3 different combinations of hardware I addressed earlier in the video. So starting first with what we have here, the Core i5 11600K 3070 combo. This earns on average a score better than 64% of all submitted results. That's not bad for a roughly $1,000 $1,000 system with a bunch of used hardware inside of it. You can see near the top our graphics score is significantly higher than our CPU score, suggesting that we might run into more CPU bottlenecks than GPU ones, which is to be expected with only a 6-core CPU, but for the money we paid for this, about $100 US or so, it's not bad. Now, if a warranty more suits your fancy and you're willing to pay about $50 to $100 more on average for it, the 12th gen Intel option with the 12600KF on sale right now on Amazon for about $150 US or so. It's an incredible buy at that price. You can get an ITX motherboard for around $200 to $250. Unfortunately, those are a bit more expensive than their AMD counterparts. That allows us to get a more beefy AMD CPU, in my opinion, for gaming, which you'll see in a second. But this is gonna give you a score that is about 4% higher than the 11th gen Intel run. This is also gonna give you a warranty. So you're gonna have a warranty on the platform, warranty on the motherboard and the CPU, which I think is probably worth it given the only $50 to $100 price disparity between the 11th gen and the 12th gen. The performance differences aren't major, but that peace of mind definitely is. But if Team Blue's totally off your radar, you're eyeing something from AMD, I've put together a sweet Ryzen 7 5700X 3D rig. Of course, we're just swapping the CPU and motherboards in these lists. You can see our price didn't change at all. We are able to afford a more powerful CPU with very good performance in games thanks to 3D V-Cache in that 5700X 3D, and a slightly cheaper ITX motherboard. AM4 ITX boards just in general are gonna be a bit cheaper than their Intel counterparts, which is nice. So that might be a reason to forego Team Blue in favor of red for a rig like this. But again, all of them are gonna cost around $1,000 or so. Just wanted to give you options in the description if you wanna build something very similar to this. There's only one thing left to do then. I've got Lisa behind the camera. You wanna say hi, Lisa?
Hi.
There we go. So yeah, this is gonna be an awkward angle just because I've got two big backpacks here that I wanna try to stuff this rig into. You know, if these don't work, this video is going to be entirely pointless. Because if it doesn't fit in a backpack, it's not a backpack PC build. I really hope that this works. I've got the Linus Tech Tips backpack just in case. That's the behemoth. We'll start with my Swiss-made backpack. This is the one that I took with me to high school and college. You know, I'm kind of thinking I should have gone with a smaller. Yeah, give me a few minutes here. Okay, probably gonna rip this backpack in the process. Yeah, that was a fail. All right, so we can't put that in an average size backpack. Ooh, LTT backpack. I really hope you come through for me. This would be great promotion for the LTT store, which is, they're not a sponsor of this video, but they make good stuff. I've used this quite a bit. I still think we're gonna be cutting it close though. You see, you don't show them these feet right here? See, this is my problem. This is what's really holding me up. I don't really think it's the girth of the case. I think it's just the feet that are getting snagged on the edges here.
A lot of boring math later.
So I ended up having to order a larger backpack to make this work. I am honestly pretty embarrassed right now that I totally got the scaling wrong for this video. V2 will go down in history as a huge flop, but I'm determined to get this thing in some sort of backpack. This one is huge from what I could tell in the pic. Again, I'm one to talk. I don't know exactly how big this is. I thought the case would be small enough to fit into an average size backpack. Maybe I'm wrong about this larger backpack as well, but judging from the photos, this thing should be able to fit like sleeping bags and stuff. So I'm assuming it's gonna be able to fit a case too. We'll find out. Yeah, I'm thinking this is gonna be big enough. Yeah, this is totally gonna work. Oh, this is heavy. Oh, come on, is this still tied? The backpack PC, version 2. It's gotta be a big backpack. This thing cost me like 50 bucks, but it does fit in one. Just make sure it's a large one. That's all for this one. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up. That'd be greatly appreciated. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and maybe sticking around for the next one. My name is Greg. Thanks for learning with me. This thing's super heavy. I'm gonna take it off now.